For decades, Burkina Faso's land gleamed with gold. Its people lived in dust. Beneath their feet lay billions in mineral wealth. Yet foreign companies reaped the rewards, shipping it overseas under colonial-era contracts crafted generations ago. No one questioned it. No one resisted it. Until one man did. It began with a broadcast, short notice, no leaks, no hints. At 8 a.m. sharp, every radio station, every TV channel in Burkina Faso tuned in. A podium stood in front of the presidential palace. Cameras rolled. Then came President Ibrahim Traoré. Young, calm, dressed in fatigues, his face held the weight of history and the resolve of a man with nothing left to lose but his chains. There was no teleprompter, no second take. He came to speak to the soul of a nation, to the people of Burkina Faso, to the people of Africa. Today we reclaim what is ours. A beat, effective immediately. All gold mining licenses granted under colonial or neo-colonial agreements are hereby revoked. No exceptions. The room froze, then gasps, then cheers, then chaos. The kind of chaos that shakes markets and terrifies men in suits thousands of miles away. He continued, "For too long, our gold has fueled empires while our children starve. That ends today." The declaration was not just policy, it was war against the system. Stock exchanges trembled, CEOs panicked, and in the villages of Burkina Faso, old men wept and children danced. That night, Traoré sat alone on the palace balcony. Drums echoed across the city, but in his hand was a leaked French intelligence memo, Operation Mercury. Objective: destabilize Burkina Faso's executive through military infiltration, economic pressure, and local unrest. His eyes didn't flinch. His people had long endured worse. Far away, at the African Union HQ in Addis Ababa, a silent storm was brewing. Mali, Guinea, and Niger expressed solidarity. Senegal and Ivory Coast hesitated, trapped by economic dependencies and foreign aid strings. Secret meetings were held behind closed doors. In Paris, President Émile Brasseur demanded action. CEOs of mining conglomerates screamed for intervention. In Washington, think tanks labeled Traoré a threat to global economic stability. NATO monitors were quietly deployed to West African airbases under the guise of training exercises. In rebel camps near the Sahel, Colonel Diallo received encrypted orders: remove Traoré within 90 days. Triple payment guaranteed. Western weapons followed. The embers had been lit, and someone wanted fire. In a small village in northern Burkina Faso, 14-year-old Karim watched his father return from the mine, not with crumbs, but with dignity. The foreign supervisors were gone. Local cooperatives had taken control. "We dig for ourselves now, son, not for strangers." Karim found the village griot, Mamadou. "Tell me about Sankara." Sankara fought with words and courage. Traoré fights with both, and now with gold. Karim began organizing friends in the village, not with weapons, but with knowledge. They learned about economics, mining law. The children drew maps of their country and practiced debates in class. They chanted in unison, "Our land, our wealth, our future." In the mines, workers began investing in schools. Former guards became community watchmen. Something ancient was being reborn: ownership. At midnight, rebels attacked a gold outpost. But instead of farmers with shovels, they met the elite Shadow Lions, Traoré's covert defense force, trained in urban and rural warfare. The firefight lasted 23 minutes. 6 rebels were killed, 3 captured. Among the captured, a rebel with a USB stick. Inside were maps, encrypted instructions, and emails from a Paris-based consultant. Ensure Traoré's removal within 90 days. Use chaos. Blame ethnic conflict. The document was signed by a director of Armit Gold, a French mining conglomerate. Traoré had seen enough. He assembled his war council, including Aminata Sawadogo, the sharp-eyed intelligence director. "We will not act in rage. We act with precision. Every move must expose them." A plan was born, a diplomatic trap at the UN. In Paris, Elise Lambert was a seasoned French journalist sent to cover the Burkina crisis. She was supposed to paint Traoré as a tyrant, but curiosity betrayed her. What she uncovered horrified her. Leaked files from Armit Gold, wire transfers to Diallo, internal memos celebrating reacquisition through destabilization. She defected. She booked a secret flight to Ouagadougou. In a secure room, she handed Traoré the files. They sent me to bury your story, but the world needs to hear it. Her exposé broke global headlines. France tried to discredit her, but Africans everywhere saw truth in her courage. Traoré appointed her as liaison to the International Press Corps. She would now document the resistance from within. Mali, Guinea, Niger, Chad. They joined Traoré in a new alliance, the African Sovereignty Bloc. Together, they revoked all colonial contracts, formed a new Pan-African bank backed by gold, and declared, "We will trade with the world." But not under chains. Leaders once hesitant now leaned forward. Ethiopia, South Sudan, and even Namibia voiced support. The Global South rallied. Even Brazil and Indonesia praised the bloc. The EU called it concerning. The African streets called it liberation. Youth across the continent wore Traoré shirts. Pan-African conferences exploded in popularity. University lectures in Ghana and Tanzania discussed the gold doctrine. History had cracked open. Diallo launched his final move, a night raid on Ouagadougou. His mercenaries breached outer defenses, but the people rose. Civilians formed human barricades. Shadow lions countered from rooftops. Youth like Karim coordinated radio communication between towns. A pregnant woman stood before an armored vehicle and shouted, "My child will not be born into slavery." The coup fell apart by morning. Diallo was captured near the border, hiding in a livestock truck. He was brought before Traoré. "You fought for their gold. I fight for our soil. You have lost." Traoré spared his life, not from mercy, but from principle. "You will live to see what we build," he said. In a special UN session, Traoré laid bare the operations against him. Maps, payments, testimonies, sabotage plans. He named companies. He named nations. He named the system. This is not anti-West. This is pro-Africa. We are not your subjects. We are your equals. The chamber exploded. The African delegation walked out as one. South America followed. The balance was shifting. Journalists in New York chanted his name. African diasporas in London, Brussels, and Toronto marched in solidarity. Burkina Faso launched a new economic charter. 70% of gold profits stay local. 20% go to regional development funds. 10% to Pan-African research and education. Karim, now 16, stood at the African Youth Congress. They tried to bury us, but they forgot. We are seeds. New schools rose. Clinics opened. Roads were built by former miners. Scholarships were offered to orphans of war. Traoré kept no palace. He walked the streets with his people. He ate with soldiers. He mourned with widows. He built with children. 1 year later, the world had changed. Burkina Faso was no longer rich in gold for the world. It was rich in purpose for its people. Traoré walked through a school built with gold profits. Children sang. "You are not poor," he told them. "You were only robbed." A new map of Africa was forming, not one drawn by colonizers, but by its own children. A future redrawn in ink and blood and gold. Months after the dust of revolution settled and the mines were finally nationalized, something unexpected happened in the desert plains of Ouaddalam province. Geologists working under Burkina Faso's newly formed Ministry of Resource Sovereignty struck something far beneath the ground. Not gold, not copper, but crude oil. High quality, abundant, untapped. Aminata Sawadogo rushed the report to the palace. "Mr. President, we have oil, and lots of it." Traoré stared at the satellite images and data charts. He stood slowly. "The empire came for our gold. What will they do now that we have fire?" He called an emergency cabinet meeting. The ministers of defense, energy, economy, and education gathered. "This changes everything," said Minister Bako of Energy. "It can fund our schools, hospitals, our independence." "Or destroy us," replied Aminata, "if we let greed lead." The government moved swiftly but cautiously. No Western company was allowed near the fields. Traoré formed a Pan-African Energy Council to oversee operations, inviting engineers from Nigeria, Angola, and Algeria. The field was secured by the Shadow Lions. Africa will drill. Africa will refine. Africa will sell. Within weeks, Burkina Faso had its first state-owned oil rig, named Sankara 1. Journalists, activists, and economists flooded the capital. The world watched nervously. Traoré called for an emergency summit of the African Sovereignty Bloc. The agenda was simple. We must not repeat the mistakes of others. Oil is a gift, but if we mismanage it, it becomes a curse. They debated for 3 days. Experts warned of corruption. Elders warned of dependency. Youth warned of climate impact. At the end, they agreed on 5 bold policies. No oil exports without refining. No dollar-only transactions. Diversification in yuan, rupees, and African gold-backed bonds. No private foreign ownership. 50% of oil revenue invested in agriculture, education, and health. A sovereign wealth fund governed by youth councils, monitored by blockchain. News spread like wildfire. African economists called it the oil doctrine. In Accra, students printed the doctrine and distributed it door to door. In Nairobi, university professors updated syllabi overnight. Burkina Faso had not just discovered oil. It had discovered strategy. The IMF offered immediate loans. They were declined. The World Bank proposed partnerships. Rejected. American and French oil giants warned of economic isolation. But Traoré held firm. They said we were too poor to dream. Now they say we are too proud to negotiate. We say, we are finally free to choose. In Paris, an anonymous official leaked a failed coup strategy. Western media scrambled to discredit the story. Pressure built. Sanctions were threatened. Western embassies reduced staff. Yet the African people stood firm behind their leader. In Kenya, a mural read, "They found oil and didn't bow." Burkina Faso, "We salute you." In Jamaica, a reggae song called Traoré Oil topped local charts. By the end of the year, the first shipment of refined Burkinabe oil left the port of Lomé under the flag of the African Sovereignty Bloc. Profits from that single shipment funded 4,000 new classrooms, 70 rural health clinics, 3 solar power plants, a university dedicated to energy innovation in Bobo Dioulasso. Traoré ordered the construction of 10 new refineries across the country. Women were prioritized for managerial positions. Youth were trained as technicians. Young Karim, now 17, gave a speech at the opening of the new energy university. "We used to dig and bleed for others. Now we build for ourselves. Oil does not control us. We control it." Farmers were given fuel subsidies. Solar projects replaced diesel generators. Burkina Faso's GDP doubled in a single year, not by extraction, but by transformation. What started as a gold rebellion ended as a blueprint for a continent. Burkina Faso had done what no one thought possible. Reclaimed its mines, defeated foreign-backed coups, built Pan-African alliances, refused neo-colonial oil traps, turned its wealth into weapons of dignity, became energy independent within 1 year. In Addis Ababa, the African Union adopted the Burkina Blueprint as a regional framework. Oil talks in OPEC shifted. President Ibrahim Traoré didn't just lead a revolution. He ignited a new age, one of gold, one of oil, one of unshakable African sovereignty.